Welcome to Legislative Lens, People and Policy with Rep. Badger. I'm your host, Michelle Badger, and I'm thrilled to have you joining me for the second episode of the podcast. For those who may not know me yet, I'm the new state representative for the 1st Plymouth District, which covers 13 of the 18 precincts here in Plymouth. I'm proud to say I grew up in the community and served on the Plymouth School Committee for 13 years. I'm lucky to be in my 101st day as your representative on Beacon Hill as we record this. I want to pull back the curtain on the state government, how state government really works, how policies are shaped, who makes things happen, and most importantly, how it all impacts you and our community. Today's episode is all about something that we care deeply about, constituent services. That can mean anything from helping you schedule a tour of the State House to assisting with housing challenges, unemployment claims, or other urgent needs. In just the first 101 days, we've been able to help so many people, and we're excited to continue the work and want to make sure you know we are here to help. Joining me to unpack all of this is our guest today, Nicole Manfredi. Nicole is the other half of Team First Plymouth and serves as my incredible legislative aide. She brings a wealth of experience to the role. She previously worked for State Senator Moran, taught in the Plymouth Public Schools for over a decade, served on the Plymouth School Committee, and currently serves as Assistant Town Moderator, just to name a few of the many ways she's involved in our community. Together, we're going to dive into how our office works for you, the residents of the 1st Plymouth District, and how we can be resources and advocate for you no matter the issue. So let's get into it and talk more about how we can help. Welcome to the podcast, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me today and for all that you do.
Having me.
I'm so well. Thank you.
Exciting.
Yes. So we're going to get right into some questions and have conversation back and forth. But so let's just first dive in. Before we really begin, we'll dive into the details. I think it's important to help with the big picture. How would you describe constituent services in your own words as someone who, does that day to day?
Sure. So legislative constituent services are simply the assistance that elected officials and their offices provide to the people that they represent. So at the state level, this looks like helping residents with state-related issues such as unemployment benefits, state taxes, DMV concerns, healthcare programs, and more. State legislators also assist with navigating state agencies, listen to community concerns, and advocate for local needs within the state government.
Yeah, it's amazing all the things that we can do, and so many people don't know. I mean, it was the first day. I think we got our first phone call.
We did.
Before we even had our voicemail really even set up.
That's right.
So we got our first voicemail about helping someone with unemployment benefits. And it really just was, eye-opening to be able to, we figured that out, or you figured it out mostly in the first 3 days, and had it figured out and solved that problem that person had been really struggling with for a really long time. And so I think that's a really important thing that we want people to understand through this conversation is that, don't worry about what your problem is or what your issue might
Absolutely.
be. If we can't answer it, we probably have a connection either in our town or on the federal level or, in some other way that will be able to help you. And so, now, what do you think are some of the most common reasons people reach out to our office?
So I would say the most frequent concerns that folks have when they reach out regarding unemployment benefits, their SNAP benefits, certainly given the current climate, we're getting a lot of communication from constituents regarding utilities and not just utilities in the world of energy, but also utility bills and them having trouble communicating with the provider and so forth. Lots of communication regarding housing. And then we do get concerns from citizens about community issues like roadways and property issues.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. And I mean, the utilities, obviously, and we do other things with constituent services. So when we're hearing from people, I mean, one thing that came from it was our energy forum that Representative Lenatra and I did. And I think it's so important that if we don't hear from you, again, it goes with the same thing with bills. If we don't hear from you, we don't know that it's an issue. I mean, we might, especially with the energy issues. We're all paying our own bills. We're all doing all that. So it's really helpful. So just because you think it might just be you who's struggling with this issue, there's more people struggling than you know.
Right. And it really defines like the depth of a problem. If we think it's just, a focused issue in either just one minority part of town or just with a few people, or if we're hearing from a vast number of constituents like we did on the energy issue, that lets us know that it's a bigger problem.
Yeah, and that we really have to take action and do something. But yeah, unemployment benefits. And it's so incredible how quickly a solution can be solved after they've been working on it for weeks.
Sure. And I don't want to take all the credit for that because we'll talk a little more about this in a minute. But it's really an incredible, I know that the system is backlogged, and I know on the constituent end, it's a really tricky process to navigate. But once they come to us, once they land on our doorstep, it's rare that I don't get at least a response within 24 hours. And so it might not be a resolution, but it kind of, I'll get an explanation to why their benefits are taking so long, or if there's, there's a hold on the account. So it's really, that part of the system works really well.
Yeah, I agree. And then the community piece too. I know when people are reaching out with us, there's only so much that we can do on our level, but we're facilitators. That's what the role of a state rep really is to bring people together. And so when we hear about community concerns that are, like you said, not just in one area or not just one or two people, we hear a lot about it. We're able to bring a group together and have a conversation. So I think it's just, I think the one thing that we're really trying to get through in this podcast and the one we did before is reach out. Reaching out is really important.
Yeah, I think for me, if I had to define the scope of the office in one word, it would be liaison. We liaison people. We're able to kind of mediate between federal agencies and also municipal agencies. And so people often come to us, not as a last resort, but not really knowing what else to do. And I can't solve every problem, but I can certainly take action on every problem. And I know where to send them for the next person to solve their problem. So.
Yeah, it's such a great thing to be able to do it. And so many people don't know that we can. And so we both know that no day looks like the other.
Ever.
And some days you think it's going to look one way and it doesn't look like it. And, this morning I started off in Taunton at a Caring Force rally and, then had a meeting back at the office, but then other days we're in the city and whatever. But, besides that, so we have different days and we can spend hours at our computer, which is very rare that we spend hours at our computers, but people are calling and emailing and we can be in the district, out of the district, state house, like I said. But so let's talk about what our days look generally. If we were to kind of, it's kind of hard, but how do we?
And Friday, I feel like is a good day. I model in my Friday. Today happens to be Friday, but I was actually this morning at the Plymouth Chamber of Commerce meeting, that delegation meeting. It was fantastic. We heard about a lot of concerns from local business owners. But so typically on a day that's not wild with scheduling, and on those days we just kind of, what do we say? We divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Yep. So typically first thing I do, and truth be told, it's often at 5 a.m. is check email, because I always want to make sure that we're attentive to those pressing concerns that constituents have, the big ones that, regarding paychecks, housing, shelter, food, things like that. So I want to make sure that check the emails and address any
and
of
where
those
you finish
concerns.
Pick up at 5 a.m. I probably finished at midnight. So, there's a 4-hour period where we're both sleeping.
Make a good team. Yeah. Morning person versus evening person.
both.
And so anything that requires immediate assistance, I address that first thing in the morning. And then after that, I follow up on any casework. So any constituent work that I've been working on that I either expect an update or am expecting communication from the constituent. I do some scheduling. And then by afternoon, I've usually gotten a good handle on the casework. And then I move on to checking legislation that we filed, checking on any progress or see if any bills require our written or oral testimony on behalf of any constituents who have advocated for the issue. I'll do either some research on a bill or file, or co-sponsor any legislation that you've brought back from the community.
So many things.
No, but that's really important, because what I think people I think they know, but it's important to emphasize, is that those tasks are coming from constituents.
Yeah.
And so when you meet with them at all these meetings and things that we talk about, you come back and say, my constituents need this, or they want to try this piece of legislation.
Yeah.
So all of those things it's not casework, but it really does go back to the constituent.
No, but it's all about the team. And I think I always say we're a team First Plymouth, but
it's coming from
the team. I mean, the team First Plymouth is all of First Plymouth. It's all the constituents who live, from JB's Corner all the way to Cedarville and all the way over to Buttermilk Bay. So, I think at Manomet and all those different places. But so I think it's really important that we're, as you said, we're handling it as a team. Like I can go to a meeting, you go to a meeting, we figure out what's important to be the voice of our constituents.
And then, so after I've done any of that legislative work, the filing and writing and co-sponsoring, I then circle back with constituents who have reached out either in support or in opposition of a bill. And I know you and I, we work closely on those responses and what your beliefs are and your intent on the floor after hearing from constituents. And so I write those really careful responses, and often we write them together, but based on your point of view and what I know you stand for, and make sure that I try to make sure that a response goes to every constituent. And, in a perfect world, that would happen in a 24-hour period, and it doesn't always. And people are really very patient and kind about that. I just feel as long as they know at some point they've been heard within a timely manner. So
and sometimes we get hundreds of emails depending on what's happening.
We do.
So we really try to tackle it
a day,
and together we're tackling the inbox so that we don't lose those emails.
Right. Oh, they'll never be lost. I have a great system.
Well, not lost,
but they sometimes, and in fairness, some of those issues are really heavy and require a thoughtful response.
Exactly.
Not that any issue wouldn't have a thoughtful response, but we have to work together on that. And so I don't want to just hastily reply. I want to make sure that I reply with your, that it's well-intentioned, that it represents all of the work that you've done in the community and why you support or oppose something and so forth. So
there are times when I'll see an important email at midnight, but I know my brain's probably not the best place. And so I think that is a time when I'll be like, okay, I'm going to save that till the morning and I'll look at it in the morning.
Or like, I'm not a big one for Friday afternoon emailing because by this point, my brain is mush. And so I don't want to I just don't want to put it out there if I'm not ready to really think about what it is how we want to respond.
Yeah, but and we're always getting back at, I've got an email the other day from a constituent who was like, I give you points for responding on a Saturday or Sunday. But if I don't,
I know.
there shouldn't be points given to me. It's if I don't, I'm going to lose it. Or if I don't, not lose it, but I'm going to lose that email or that thought or whatever it is I'm trying to do. And like you said, we're trying to take timely action. So I think that's really important.
And then I think the last thing I do typically, and it depends on the day of the week, but some of that housekeeping stuff that we talked about, like website updates, and that the website has some of the all of the legislation that we filed, your votes. And so things like that are relevant to constituent questions and concerns. I make sure that those are updated. And then we just some social media outreach.
Yeah. It's all about pulling that curtain back. And that's what we're both about, just making sure that people understand what we're doing day to day. And so we're doing this and having this conversation.
Right. And everything relates around the constituent. That's just really
100%. At
the end of the day, that's what it is.
We're here for. So we've talked a little bit about the day-to-day piece. Now, when you get a constituent request, how is that handled? I know you have to coordinate with agencies. Will we come together to coordinate with agencies, or we coordinate with a specific individual or group or whatever? So when someone needs help with things like unemployment or housing or healthcare, how do you coordinate that?
Sure. So I have direct and regular contact with those government affairs representatives at all the state agencies. So EOHLC, or Housing and Livable Communities, Department of Unemployment Assistance, Health and Human Services, Veteran Services. And then I also have direct and regular contact with those constitutional offices like the Office of the Attorney General and the State Auditor. And so together we work to assist constituents on a number of issues. I kind of think of those folks as like the back door to these state agencies. They're able to expedite issues on another level, right? So while I can't, if somebody has an issue with their unemployment benefits claim, I obviously can't get their claim. I can't do anything on their claims myself, but I have that backdoor piece. And again, especially when we talk about the Department of Unemployment Assistance, that office that works with me directly is phenomenal. And specifically, her name is Barbara. She's wonderful. I wish she would hear this, but they, for all the flaws that the general unemployment assistance system has, their resolution, their government affairs department is top notch. So it's
and we're lucky because you have a lot of those existing relationships from when you work for the senators. Right. So it's perfect. And I'm just kind of building those relationships
Mhm.
with different groups. And some of I already had that makes it easy to work and get answers, but some I didn't. And so, like the other day I was talking to someone about a veterans issue. And so reached out to the Veterans Legislative Aide, or not aid, Government Affairs probably is the
Right.
title.
Yep.
Lovely. And they're going to look at it, get the information. But that's how we're building those relationships. So people know that we're here, we care, and we want to.
And that's really what it is.
know
People in those
and learn.
positions are really interested in doing good things for communities,
Yeah.
right? Like they're not, let's be honest, we're not all in public service for the paycheck. So on the other end, for as much as we want to help people, they're doing the same,
Yeah.
right? In that role, in that specific government affairs role, that's their intent.
And they
that's
have
their
the passion and the expertise.
yeah.
So it's really
They're
helpful.
pretty awesome.
They really are. So I know that what kind of challenges do we run into when we're trying to resolve cases? I know we've had some that take longer than we should, that
Sure.
maybe it should, or, like we get lots of emails. Think about it. If we're getting hundreds of emails a day and maybe
Fire hose for them.
it's a fire hose for them. Exactly. And so it's just like when a big issue pops up and we get a ton. So they're getting it from 200 legislators,
Right.
160 state reps, and they're getting it from the 40 senators. And, as much as we hope that you're only reaching out to one person, but sometimes
Mhm.
people reach out to their senator and their state rep at the same
Right.
time. Or so there's all kinds of
happens
challenges.
often.
Yes.
Yeah. So, speaking from experience, one of the really tricky issues to assist with is, they're separate issues, but they're related, is shelter and housing. And not only are they the trickiest issues, they're the most emotionally draining. And it's really where your empathy kind of kicks in. But securing emergency shelter for constituents is always possible. And I know that there's a narrative out there that there's no shelter available. And securing shelter for our constituents is possible. But it often requires that the constituent relocate to another community, whether it's on the basis of need or circumstance or condition. And that's really disappointing to a lot of people who want to stay here in the community. Oftentimes, folks, you'll hear some people think that unhoused people are being denied shelter because of migrants taking those spaces. And I'm here to say that's wholeheartedly not true. A lot of times there are other conditions. Some shelters only take people with that don't have medical conditions, or there's a lot
Single
of
people,
exactly.
yeah.
There's a lot of conditions. Some people have some trauma in their background, and so they can't be in a facility with certain types of other folks. And so I just want to make sure that message is clear, that if you're in need of shelter, we can get you shelter. And we're talking about short-term emergency shelter. The unfortunate thing, of course, is that it often requires relocation. And that's hard. I wish we could do more because we can't always get the location of preference. And then you have to weigh what's more important, staying unhoused in your community or being safe and in a shelter somewhere else. So, and then the other hard thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that is securing long-term housing for constituents. And sadly, that wait list is unreasonably long, right? Many low-income and elderly constituents find themselves on those public housing lists for, I'm going to say 4 years. That's conservative, right? And it's just due to a limited availability. So when this happens, the first thing I do is verify with the housing agency that all their paperwork is in good order and confirm that they're actually on the list. Sometimes there's miscommunication and folks have some challenges navigating the system and they don't realize that they're not on the list yet or they're missing paperwork. And then once I've done that, I can reach out to a variety of state agencies to be sure that this constituent's basic needs are met. So short-term shelter, food, clothing, and in these cases, it's difficult because we just wish we could do more. And that's we could probably do a podcast just on the housing crisis, but that's the most challenging, I think.
I mean, just in general housing, we're 220,000 units in the Commonwealth behind. And so that's what just exacerbates our issues. And I know they're doing a lot of work, and the governor has a plan, and the executive office of housing and livable communities.
With that.
Jeez, it's a mouthful for sure. they've got some reports and some that they've just released in the last couple of months, I'd say, that hopefully detailing a plan to get us to a place that will have housing for everybody. And this is affordable housing, and it's, because we get the calls too from people who, or just have the conversations at events and things where you have, older adults, elderly who want to downsize from their house.
Right.
But they can't afford it because if they sell their home, they're not able to find something that they can pay for, or that is, in their community where they want to stay. So,
and I think there's a misconception out there with a lot of folks that when, I know people that I engage with in the community. I mean, even my own husband, who's a very bright guy, he's got a master's degree, right? He's educated. He didn't understand what housing crisis really meant. And I said, it's not about, we're not talking about like homes.
Yeah.
We're talking about these low income and elderly folks who don't have long-term housing, right? Like we're not talking about building a house on a road. We're talking about housing for people who need that.
All kinds of units of all kinds.
Yes, exactly.
And you're talking about apartments, you're talking about condos,
exactly.
you're talking about,
right.
We're talking about a house on 3 acres if you want it, but we're talking about a house on a half
we're
an
not
acre.
talking about the housing market. That's different than housing, the limited housing that we're talking about. So that's a huge challenge.
It really is, but hopefully we'll get, a handle on that a little bit. And obviously there was the bond bill from last session. So hopefully housing will get, and I know we're not on this podcast is not about housing, but we could go down that road. But, I'm lucky enough to be on the committee, the housing committee. So that's exciting. We'll see what comes from that. But here's hoping we can solve some of that.
Here's hoping for sure.
So again, we're on our day 101. And we've had lots of constituent calls, small issues, big issues, people wanting to celebrate things as well, which I think is always a nice thing to remember. It's not just about, I'm having this problem. It's also like, I've done this really great thing, or usually it's not it's usually hey, we have this person that we know that's retiring.
Or the Cub Scout.
We've got the Eagle Scout.
The Eagle Scout, right.
And then that's
the good stuff.
We have to, so it's constituent services isn't just all like, I feel like we're doom and glooming right now.
You're right.
But there is like really fun things that we get to do. We're honoring great things people have done in and around our community. I think so much of it is people think about in that light of how we can help you, but also how can we honor you? And I think that's a really fun piece of it. You open a new business, we can be there and we can, present a citation. And so there's so many things, but I'm just wondering if you can share a story or an example without naming names, because we've got a lot of names that have been, and we've interacted with a lot of people. I mean, in the short 101 days, I don't even know, thousands of people. I have given away every single one of the 500 business cards that I got, and that was like a month ago. So clearly we've met a lot of people. Can you give us like kind of a time we're able to make a difference for a constituent, a story that we've kind of handled?
So I had a feeling this was coming up. I could think of a handful of folks who had so much gratitude. But I think it's hard to choose one story. I think ultimately the most satisfying casework involves helping constituents who are worried and frightened. And typically they're worried and frightened about where they're going to get their paycheck, or where they're going to get their next meal, or where they're going to sleep, right? So I without really honing in on a specific constituent, when a constituent contacts our office, they generally have exhausted every other resource. And we're kind of their last hope for resolution. And that doesn't have to be the case, but I find it is, because a lot of folks don't know what we can do for them. And it really is rare. It's a rare circumstance when there's simply nothing we can do. It's very rare. I can't even think of a time when I just couldn't do. Even if it's a federal issue, we farm that out to the federal delegation and follow up. So I don't want to pick just one story. I think the most impactful stories are when I'm working with a constituent who's really frightened or worried, and I pull together the resources and we take action. And like I said, it's rare that we can't do anything. And I don't do this for the gratitude, but to hear them at the end of the day, they're so thankful because they're not worried and afraid anymore.
Well, it's not It's not the gratitude. It's the
right. It's the fact that they're actually not worried and afraid anymore.
You're doing it to help somebody. I mean, that's what we're in this for.
Exactly. It's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And those are the stories that I remember.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's the best part when you know that's something that someone doesn't have to worry. Or maybe they just don't have to worry right now, but then we'll follow up. But they know that they have somebody in their corner. There's somebody here that can help them once they know. And I guess what we're saying, and we're going to say it over and over again in this podcast, is reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out and tell your friends about this too. Because not everyone's going to listen to this podcast. I don't know how many people will, but a couple people.
They should. Yeah. But I think also, aside from the resolution piece, like getting that person's paycheck back in order or getting housing or whatever, sometimes it's so overwhelming. The processes are so overwhelming and some of these state programs are really hard to navigate. Sometimes they just need someone to take something off their plate or they need me to connect them to another agency that can better assist. And so their problem isn't fixed, but a path to the resolution is now clear.
Yeah.
And, that is the most impactful thing.
I agree. So I know we've talked that you worked on the Senate side, come over to the House. I guess, how did your work in the Senate kind of shape and approach your work now?
Sure.
Where we get to work as a team?
So I, as a past educator, this is career 2 for me. So I shifted to the Senate and started out as Director of Constituent Services. So entry-level position. And obviously we've defined what that looks like, right? And from there, I moved up to District Director. And that's a lot of problem solving at the district level, a lot of communication with town officials, and then moved up again to Chief of Staff. So I have a variety of experience in the state legislature. So these experiences have given me kind of the skill set to navigate any constituent issue, work collaboratively with town administration, conduct the legislative research, draft and file bills, write testimony. The Senate does, we talk about this a lot. The Senate does operate a little differently than the House side. Their procedures are unique to the needs of the senators and their much larger constituent base. But the legislative process is the same. Right? So that skill set that I gained on that side is certainly transfers over to the House.
Yeah, but I think it's important to obviously you're talking about a much larger staff. So our senators have 4 or 5 people working for them.
Right.
And it's just the 2 of us. And I think that's important for people to know that so many people, when they reach out, they're like, oh, can your staff? And we get a lot of requests to go to things. Like someday we'll have 3 or 4 meetings all at the same time. Right. And we can only, unfortunately, we haven't got Hermione's time turner yet for anybody else who's a Harry Potter nerd out there. We don't have that yet. And so we can only be in 2 places at once. So we do our best to be and help and do.
Sometimes we're in more than 2 places at once because we can do a remote meeting.
True.
But that's tricky because you want to give your full attention to everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
But kind of what I just mentioned previously in my roles at the Senate, on the Senate side, we are actually in the House here. You and I work as, obviously you're the legislator doing the important things, but constituent service director, district director, Chief of Staff, we don't have
someone asked me to send you to my scheduler.
We don't have people to farm that out to. So that experience that I had on the Senate side comes in really handy because now I'm doing all the things.
We're trying to keep all the balls in the air, which is really important.
We got it.
I think for the most part, every day there's very few things that I don't think we've let any.
No.
Knocking on this wood right here.
Yep.
We haven't let anything drop as of yet, and I don't think we've missed anything, so that's good. And I guess one of the things that I think is really interesting is what surprises you most of what people don't know that we can help them with. I think I was surprised at the number of people who were literally shocked that we could help them with all this stuff. I mean,
it still surprises me.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously was on the school committee for 13 years, so I've had a different relationship with, and my background and different people I've worked for, but so I understand there's a lot of things that the government can do for you, but the number of people who don't feel like they can reach out to us and say, hey, I'm over here, I need help. I mean, what are we here for if we're not here to help them?
So I know constituents know, right, that the delegation is charged with listening to the concerns of the community and advocating for legislative fixes. That's kind of the broad scope of what people see legislators do. But most often what surprises folks is the ability that the office has to expedite the concerns on that state level. So federal issues, I think I said this before, like Social Security, those get bumped to the federal delegation. But I often hear from residents how surprised they are to learn all the other ways that we can help them navigate those speed bumps and bottlenecks. And a perfect example of that is what we're seeing with DUA, the Department of Unemployment Assistance. I think, well, I know that I've been told this on their website, when the people are trying to communicate with them, there's either a message on their website or there's an oral message on the recording.
Yeah.
And it directs people to their state representative's office, which is helpful because we would rather help people than not. But half of the people that reach out will say to me, I had no idea what to do next. I didn't know I was supposed to contact my state representative. And so I think the agencies are really starting to kind of direct people to us so that we can be problem solvers and help with these resolutions.
We all need to work together because it's a team to keep our world all going. And, I've obviously mentioned I was on the school committee. I've been involved in the town, and so have you. And I think for me personally, it's been, I can't imagine coming into this role without the experience, the people and the relationships that I have in our community. And I know you obviously is deeply involved in our community. How has that helped you with your role?
So I have an undergrad and graduate degree in education and research, and then recently just earned my graduate certificate in education policy. And so all this extended education certainly provides that institutional knowledge of government and policy. But being a teacher actually provided me with a lot of things, high blood pressure being one of them, but provided me with a really strong lens for understanding state government, especially how it functions and impacts everyday life. I saw firsthand how state education policies are implemented, and had firsthand experience on how laws were passed at the state level and the trickle down to the classroom, right? Yeah. That real life experience. And of course, working with diverse groups of learners and always advocating for my students, that helped me kind of hone those advocacy, equity awareness, and policy impact skills. And of course, as a teacher, I was immersed in teaching civics and history, which is all relevant to this position. My time on school committee provided me, on the flip side, with the experience of understanding how school funding works, which is talk about
confusing,
lifting the curtain, right? And I don't mean that in a way that there's no transparency. I'm not a budget person, so my eyes were really open to the complexity of the budget and planning process. And so that was a great learning stretch for me in that area. And then I have been the assistant town moderator for 7 years. So this has provided me with that solid understanding of legislative and parliamentary procedures. And I think in that role, engaging with the community really provides sort of like a responsiveness that's important when we go back to the office and talk about the legislative piece. When you're writing bills or researching bills, you're bringing that back from the communities.
Well, like, where do we go here? Like, we heard this. Now, what do we do?
Exactly.
I mean, the number of times we have that conversation in the last 101 days, is, okay, we've heard
More
this.
than 101.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How do we do this? How do we solve this? And is there a solution? And that's when those relationships with, whether it's the executive offices or it's another state rep or it's another
colleagues,
state senator, it's finding the staff who know, because goodness, the staff, as you know, are incredible. Some of them have been there probably longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, Betty has.
And Betty's been there for a long time.
Many times.
Yeah, we all know Betty DeBenedictis, if I can get her name correctly. Geez. But yeah, so I think it's really, there's a lot of ways to learn and a lot of.
Yeah, I think that was my point. There's a lot of ways to learn, and certainly those life experiences have just as much value as the education.
Yes, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, there's, even with the education, it's like, how does everything actually work?
How does it fit together?
Because, like anything we've ever done, and we all know, and, you're a teacher, I'm a fundraiser, like anything that you do and you read about it isn't actually how it's like, it's not actually how it happens.
100%.
There's always something behind it that's a little bit different. Or, I had to take I'm a certified fundraising executive, or I think is the title of the certificate I hold. And the longer you wait to take that test, there's like evidence or something that your first time pass goes down because you actually are not going to answer the questions in the way they want you to answer because it's not by the book. It's not this is a great situation and this is how it's going to fold out.
But in the interim, you're probably gaining more valuable skills being in the role and actually being immersed in that.
And knowing how it actually works, not like how in a perfect world, a utopian society, it would work. But that isn't where we live.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think that another question that I have that we've kind of talked about a little bit, are there any tools, events, or resources you wish more people knew about when it comes to reaching out to our office or comes to, just in general, how to navigate on their own?
Sure. So I think with the constituent piece, always just contact us, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know, contact us, because if it's not appropriate or if it's not something within the scope of our office, no harm.
Yes.
Right? But you don't know that it's not something that we can help with or can't help with. So always reach out no matter what. If it's a federal issue, I would say go to your federal delegation, but I am happy to make those connections.
And we've done it a few times
no
already.
Big deal.
Yep.
But the one tool that and you and I have talked about this before that I think people aren't aware of, and did we do a social media post?
We did do a post and people were like thrilled about it when we did this.
On the I think it's legislator.gov. Okay. So on that website. Legislature. On that website, you can actually create an account, set up your profile, and this sounds dorky, but there really is a purpose. You can go in and identify the bills that you're interested in following that will impact you directly, and you can track those bills. Mm-hmm. And just in the last few weeks when we've been kind of promoting this feature, people have said how valuable it is. Mm-hmm. Of course, if you want to know where a bill is, email us, no problem. It takes just a minute to respond. But what I'll probably do is send you the link to that website because it gives you not only it doesn't just tell you where the bill is, it tells you the bill history, it tells you the co-sponsors. Oftentimes there's a summary. So the bill language can be tricky. So the summary is really helpful. But if anyone's interested in tracking certain pieces of legislation, I would say that's a tool that is underutilized.
Oh, 100%.
You can set up the bills that you want to track, and then it will do that for you. It will give you those bill updates. And then especially, we have a lot of folks who want to provide testimony, whether it's in person or written. And so now you know when those hearings are scheduled and you know when to reach out and we can set that up for you.
Yeah, because if you are waiting on us or if you're emailing and you ask and it's the day after, you've missed your opportunity. Right. Usually there's a hearing and it has a list of bills that they are going to address on that, whatever topic it's on. And that's the one time that, public comment will be accepted on X, Y, and Z. And you can do that virtual. You don't have to come into Boston. Right. It's always lovely. And also if you do and you track this on your own and you're coming in, let us know. Because if I'm around, I'd love to go and support you. We just supported Tom Pinto, who spoke in front of Ways and Means. Gosh, was that Tuesday, I think? Ways and Means about the importance of funding our educational transportation. And anybody who knows me, has talked to me for 30 seconds, knows that I'm a yellow bus transportation nerd. Exactly. About the fact that we need to be funding and giving funding to our districts. And that is what Tom spoke about. And I was, I think I was in and out just trying to track on him throughout the day. But because it's not like you show up and they tell you that at exactly 11:15, they're going to call you. You could be there.
There's a lot of hurry up and wait.
Yes. And so you could be there for a few hours. Like I think it started at 11 and Tom didn't talk until like 1. And so, because people will sign up to have these conversations and to get your 3 minutes in front of the board, the committee. So it's important that, let us know if you want us there. You don't have to if you don't, but we would love to if we're able to come and support you or say hi or invite you by our tiny office. I think it's important. I don't think I've mentioned it. We moved since our last one, so we're no longer in the bullpen. We are in room 33, which is in the basement. So you go in the Ashburton entrance and, where I think you take a right and a left and we're the right in the corner into the space that we have. And we're a very small office, so we can only fit about 1 or 2 people to come and visit us. But we'd love to have you there. And so please, if you do want to follow a bill and you follow it yourself, if you need us to follow it for you, we're happy to do that as well. But again, this will be the most responsive, I would say. You're able to
how many bills have been filed?
7,000 bills. So again, it's not easy.
I wouldn't put a lot of faith in us tracking the bill for you and,
we'll
reaching out every time there's movement on the bill. Happy to respond to an inquiry, but as far as taking that would be tricky for us to reach out to everybody who's interested in a bill. But that tracking feature is fantastic.
But yeah, so please reach out to us if you would like some additional information on how to follow a bill. We can send it to you so you have it.
Sure.
But again, like Nicole said, we can't always guarantee that we will be able to follow it for you. So this is the best route. I think one of the biggest thing is I think we talk about how much we love this all the time, and that this really it fuels us. That we're able to help people, and
absolutely.
And I think that's I don't want to put words into your mouth, but that is how I feel about it. It is being able to help people. I always said if you could make school committee a full-time job, that it would be the best job I could ever have. And, this is school committee on steroids in all different levels. So, I think being able to serve people like we're able to, it's really it's an honor, and I'm privileged to be able to be in this role, and I'm privileged to be able to do it with you, and lucky to have you as
at the end of every day, I feel like we've helped at least one person directly.
Yes.
Like a direct impact. And often it's more.
Yep.
But never a day goes by where I think that it's just a really cool place to be.
It really is. And I mean, the number of times I come back and I'm like, oh, Nicole, do we know if there's a piece of legislation about this? Or, oh, why don't we try this? Or is there something we could do over here?
Or let's research it. Or let's write it. And then once we do that, let's let that person know that we filed it on behalf of them.
Yes.
And then let's let them know they should come up and testify. And it's really full circle.
Yeah, like I think
solving problems for constituents.
Yeah.
In so many different ways.
I couldn't agree more. And like the 7,000 bills that we get, we don't know them all. So if, again, I think we said this in our earlier, I believe, I know we said it in the last bill, in the last podcast. If you know about a bill that we should be paying attention to, send us an email. Don't think that you're the 400th person to send us an email. You might be, but you also could be the first. We got an email the other day about their head and neck cancer survivors are not provided with dental. Dental insurance is not guaranteed. The dental work that they need is not guaranteed. And this is something I would never have thought about, would never have known until we had a constituent reach out and say, I know this person that had head and neck cancer. This is the issues that she has every day. This is the pain that she goes through. And then a couple of days later, she actually reached out. So,
And then didn't we bump into her at the State
and then
House?
we bumped into her.
Which was such a cool thing because we were able to meet her and really like connect her to the story.
Yeah. And so it's just so important. But like long story short, I mean, I feel like throughout this whole thing, reach out. I think, and don't be afraid that we're going to be like, oh, we're not going to help you, but because we're going to help you. We're going to figure out a way to help you.
Always.
We might not be, your end game, your end point, and we might not have the solution or the magic wand for you, but we'll have a connection and a person. So I think that's really summarizes what we've been trying to do today.
Agreed.
But I just want to thank you so much, Nicole, for taking time out away from our emails. We're going to jump right back into them after this. For being a part of this second episode, for keeping our office running smoothly every day, and for the incredible work you do for the 1st Plymouth District. I truly couldn't do what I do without you, so I'm so happy to have you. And as we're recording this, as I said, for probably 101 times today, it's our 101st day serving the people of the 1st Plymouth District. And we're here. We've had our first votes. We've had committee hearings. I've had my very first hearings coming up next week. I'm really excited about it. We have budget processes underway. We've got budget week coming up, which I think will be the topic of our next podcast, a little bit about what budget week looks like. It'll be in May, obviously. So that's why I think, it'll end up being about the budget. But I'd love to hear from you about topics that you're interested in for this session, things that you want us to pay attention to. So always feel free to say, hey, Michelle, I'd love you to do a podcast on this, or I'd love to come on your podcast and talk about X, Y, and Z. If we can make it work, maybe we'll be able to do it. So drop us a message and let us know. And don't forget to follow us along for future episodes where we'll break down key policies, talk with people making a difference in our community and around the state, and share how you can get involved. You can follow me on social media. It's a long list, so hold on. Instagram, we have state_rep._Michelle_Badger. Facebook is State Rep Michelle Badger. Blue Sky is Rep Michelle Badger, and TikTok is Badger for Plymouth. We also have a YouTube page, which is Badger for Plymouth, and a brand new website as of almost a month ago now, staterepmichellebadger.com. So we're really excited to keep connection with you. So every week I do a 3 to 5 minute kind of update on what we've been doing and throughout that week and any highlights I want. It's not everything because it would be 15 minutes long, but it is some of the highlights of our week. So please check that out. And again, let me know of other topics that you're interested in learning about. But thank you again for listening to Legislative Lens, People and Policy with Rep. Badger. Have a great day, Plymouth. We'll see you next month.